Hello, everyone, and welcome to AC Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by David, the creator and executive producer of the most immersive theatrical D&D experience, the 20-Sided Tavern, and the founder of Gamiotics. Welcome, David.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I like to begin this a little bit with a bit of an easy question, just sort of to icebreaker us into this. What's best for a story, a nat 20 or a nat 1?
Honestly, oh god, that is not an easy question. Honestly, I mean, a nat 20 really propels momentum, and I love momentum, right? A nat 1 presents you with a series of really difficult choices, and so you know, I love fun games. I mean, if you know the show and you know what we've done, like I love everybody having fun and having a good time. Nat 1's kind of like dampen the mood sometimes, so right. I always gonna go nat 20.
That's fair. I honestly, adding in the phrase like, progression, that's smart, especially when you, in the area that you guys are currently having your entertainment, sort of situated, that it has to move forward. Has to. Can't just be stagnant. That's very, very smart. I gave a broad and sort of a brief introduction to 20-Sided Tavern, but for those who don't know what we're talking about, do you mind going into further detail?
Yeah, sure. So 20-Sided Tavern is a live-action D&D experience game. It is an official D&D show. It's a live stage show. And basically what happens is that the audience comes in to the space, into a theater, and they QR code into a piece of software called Gamiotics, which is my company. And from that point on, everybody in the building, everybody in the room is playing the game along with us. And so we do like a very kind of traditional setup where we have a DM, we have a TK, which is a tavern keeper, which helps us with the rules, and then we have 3 players on stage, right? And those players are fighter, mage, and rogue, or whatever the nomenclature is. I always get it wrong, so we've changed it so many times over the years. Might, magic, and mischief. That's what we wound up on.
Oh, clever. Nice.
Might, magic, and mischief, right? And what we do is we have the audience assemble our party for us. So every actor, the 3 actors who come on stage, have 3 possible characters that they could be that night. And we basically ask the audience using my software to say, which character do you want them to be? And then they assemble the party. And then they go off on stage and we start the story. And for 2.5 hours, we are going on an adventure in Waterdeep, where we are basically, the overarching story is Wizard stumbles into a tavern, hires 3 adventurers to help. He has made a terrible mistake and the world is doomed, and they have to go find the wizard in Waterdeep and then go on a quest. And the audience is there helping them go on this quest. And the where we go and how we get there and types of people to fight and characters that we meet changes every single night. And it's all kind of dependent on the situation that we're in. Like I said, the party is always different every night. And it allows us to go, and it's basically a 2.5 hour one shot, and it allows us to go on an adventure that's never the same adventure every night. Now, there are tent poles, right? It's like Wizard in Tavern, at Wizard's house, end of Act 1, stuff that happens in Act 2, big BBEG fight at the end, right? But the endings are always a little different. The BBG is never the same thing. And then the characters, our actors, there's a ton of really amazing improv that happens in the show. What our actors do is when they run off stage to go to a costume for the character plan of the night, they come up with a condition that they're coming back on stage with, and it's a story point, and they run with it. And it's just literally where we started. We did this for 4 years. It was like, what's going on with you today? What do you want to, what journey, what do you feel like doing today? What's happening to you? And then the 3 of them have to work together to execute a story that night. So it's an interesting, like, departure from the idea that the DM is controlling the story in your D&D game, right? And you are reacting to it. Much like how we've given the audience a role and stakes and a place to be in this experience, we've taken some of the storytelling from the DM. Like he or she has to keep everybody on track to get through it. But we're empowering the actors on stage to participate in that story every night. So we have a broad outline of what happens, and then it's like chaos. That's what it's been for 4.5 years.
The fact that you've, creator of this whole thing, you must have, I'm assuming, have a history within the tabletop community.
Broad base, right? Everything I can get my hands on. I love board games. I love RPG. I love video games. I love storytelling, right? So if you're going to ask me on this call what my favorite game is of all time, like a tabletop game is one thing, right? But
Right.
my favorite video game of all time is Last of Us 1 and 2.
Ooh, heavy story.
But it's the best story I've ever played in my life. Nothing has come close to it to this day.
I'm right there in the board with you. I love story-based video games. It kind of, I think it marries so well with our also kind of love towards tabletop, because it is all just about the story. You're being put on an adventure. It's a good choice too, and you can't go wrong with Naughty Dog too.
Well, and I love tabletop games where you get to inhabit a character or a role, where you get to kind of play it. I mean, certainly within D&D, but where you get to kind of play a narrative, right?
Yeah.
That you're assigned to. So, like, I'm one of those people that loves Betrayal at House. Like I on Haunted Hill, right? Betrayal at House on the Hill. Like I love that game.
Yes.
So many people hate that game with a passion, right? But I love that game. Because I think it's fun to play as your weird little character.
It's also fun to be the villain at times. When it lands on you, you become the monster. It's a fascinating. And it's like, yeah, we can talk for endlessly about that game. I've hours on that one alone. It's a fun game. But for tabletop exclusively, especially like role playing games, have you ever been at a party, a player at a party, or have you been like the game master yourself at a certain point?
No, not really. That's not me. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not me at all. I mean, like in D&D, I've been a player. I have never been a DM. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I like being a character.
Nice. Do you remember your first dice set?
Yeah, and it wasn't that many years ago. And then, like, I'm genuinely, compared to everybody else that I've worked with on the show, I'm the newest person into D&D, right? And so, like, pre-pandemic, obviously, but like it was, as a child, I didn't grow up with it.
Right.
And so it came into my life later. And you know, obviously it's amazing. I love it. So yeah, I mean, so like I was gifted dice sets, within the last 10 years to get me started.
Incredible. Well, careful. I know a lot of people who say that and then all of a sudden they become dice goblins. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you got to watch that. All of this, and you mentioned prior, but all of this is being powered by Gamiotics. It is the digital bridge between the performers and the audience members. What was sort of the spark of the idea that kind of brought that out?
So there was there were a couple of things that happened in the early days. I've been working on this software for about 8 or 9 years now. And there was a show in New York by Punch Drunk called Sleep No More. It ran for about 10 years from 2015 to 2025. And what Sleep No More was, if you don't know it, was you went into this building in Chelsea, I don't know, 5 or 6 floors. And basically there were, over the course of 5 floors, and it was in, I think it was 2 3-hour loops. I could have that wrong. They had a wordless kind of telling of Macbeth. And I say that, like, no line, no dialogue, no lines, right? But it happened all over the building, right? And it was brilliantly done, where you'd have one scene happening on one floor at the same time, and another floor something else would be happening, and these moments would converge and they'd break apart. And so your job as a patron, and you were wearing a mask, so you were kind of blank, and you were like a ghost, and you had agency. You got to choose what floor you went to, which actor you followed. You would be chasing actors, you'd be going through rooms, exploring it, and you'd be like following along and trying to piece together the story. And the way that it worked is they drop you into the story at any moment. Right. So like if it started at, let's say, 6 o'clock and you showed up at 6:30, they dropped you in at 6:30 and you would just kind of keep going through this thing. So Punch Drunk, very famous, very successful company out of London. They've done a lot of really amazing things. But I did it back in 2015. And I remember being so struck by the fact that I, as a ticket buyer, had agency to kind of craft this story and for myself. And I was really taken by it. And then when I left, another thought hit me, which was, it didn't matter that I was there. Like, everything was just going to happen regardless of whether I had showed up. Like, my participation had nothing to do with the art that was happening in front of me.
Yeah, they took a step forward for you to be involved, but technically was never really there. It was just
didn't matter that my existence did not matter. And I just remember thinking, and that's just what it is. That's not a good or bad thing. It's not a judgment on it, right? But I remember
it's just the experience you're hoping for, or at least like there's different expectations.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but the spark was, I left and I had that thought, and I thought, but what if I could make a choice that changed the narrative? And so that was one thing. The second thing was there was a show that I'd found that was when you walked in and you were handed a 4 ABCD push button remote or a radio frequency remote tied to educational polling software, and it was a rom-com show about a guy who is unlucky in love, and a genie shows up to help him find love, and this this kind of rom-com thing that goes on, and the audience was there to make choices for the guy, and so they made all these choices like what that they went on a date with, what he wore, where he went, what he said at key moments, and there was an embedded point system in this show. So the genie throughout the show would kind of like throw it to the audience, be like, "What should you do? What should you do?" And the audience would vote in real time using the software. And then there were like 15 different endings at the end, right? And everything from if they voted, and so there was a point system embedded in the choices. So if you were given an ABCD choice, A might have more points than D or whatever choice you're making for this guy on this date. And so if you voted 100% correctly all the way through the show, he sleeps with the girl at the end. And if you voted 100% bad, he throws himself off a bridge, and then all these different things in between, right? So you never knew what ending you were going to get. It was all depending. And it was the first time I'd ever seen someone correctly apply video game style architecture with a currency or a point system that worked, that the audience got excited and were engaged at. And that happened roughly about the same time that I saw Sleep No More. Both these things happened at once. And I optioned that show because I was a Broadway and off-Broadway producer for 25 years. And I optioned that show. And I remember saying to the author, "Hey, this thing that you have to do the voting is not going to work. Like, it's just not going to work from a scalability."
Just screaming out loud, yeah.
And so I had found, well, it wasn't. I mean, it was digital voting to a degree. So I said, I'm going to go find another solution for this. And that's where Gamiotics was born, which is a web-based software. It's on your phone. It's in your, the QR code and off it goes. The irony is that author, I gave him like pages and pages and pages of notes about a script. And 3 months later, he turned back at a script that had no changes and was like, "If you didn't like my work, you should have optioned." And I was like, "Peace out, dude." I'm like, that's not how collaboration works in the modern world. Huh. And I was left with a piece of software or no place to put it. And so that's where I started trying to figure out how to use Gamiotics in the real world. And this was 16, 17 maybe, so almost 10 years ago. And it was a very long journey to get to where I am now.
Incredible. Yeah, it's funny. When I was first initially thinking about what the result or the spark that would have came from this was, and this is coming from the mindset of like a startup, is generally we build something that doesn't exist, or because we find a way to improve it. My initial thought was that this came from you being from at a show and wishing that you had the ability to nudge the director a little bit, just sort of digitally send a little note. So we're kind of in the ballpark, but definitely along from that.
You're in the ballpark. It's more about my love of video games and my love of choose your own adventure style storytelling, where this concept that you as an audience member, we move from passive entertainment into participatory entertainment, and then into participatory narrative entertainment, where it becomes branching, and so where what I am absolutely enamored with is this concept of presenting a live entertainment show that is never the same show twice, because of the input that you're getting from the audience, which is what we've done at 25 Tavern.
Not only the medium you chose, but also sort of the subject being D&D as a whole, I think is perfect for a narrative. It is very much built for narrative choices anyway, so I think the fact that you've integrated together is such a great choice. You mentioned before...
it was the most logical starting point.
100%.
It really ended up being the most logical starting point for this, yeah.
And you mentioned before, you have a solid history within the entertainment space, specifically live theater.
Live, yeah.
Using that with tech, that we've got the game that we all love, D&D on stage. In this cosmic multiverse, because we just talked about how you like other systems as well. Could there have been a different system that you may have chosen in whatever alternate universe we could exist in?
Probably. So during the pandemic is where Gamiotics really was born.
Yeah.
And I did this online thing called Seize the Show, and we did 20-hour-long shows in 18 months, right? Everyone was out of work, I had a little bit of government money. They were ticketed events, and we would use Zoom as our performance platform and then people would, wherever they were in the country, the people all over the country, all over the world, would kind of tune in through Zoom and use Gamiotics at home, right? Because again, it's web-based, you can use it anywhere, right? And so that's how I learned how to use Gamiotics as a tool for this style of narrative storytelling. So we did murder mysteries, which were amazing. We did online escape rooms. The murder mysteries were really cool, and like I will come back to it one day. But we would set up a script where we would make I wouldn't do it again this particular way, but we would have the audience make some sort of innocuous choice at the beginning, and that choice actually determined who the murderer was in the script. So like the actors never knew who was going to be the murderer during that show, and then they'd know at that, be like, all right, this is the track that I'm on, this is what I'm doing. And so the whole thing was kind of really heavily tracked and all of that. And so it was a fun thing to kind of bring it back and be like, who's going to be the murderer tonight? It's up to you. And the audience would know how that was happening. It was very rudimentary in that early days. But I love that. But I love that idea, that like Clue, right? Where it's like you sit down and play a game of Clue, and you don't know who the murderer is. Yeah. And I'm wanting to take that into live entertainment. So D&D from a mechanic standpoint just made sense, like through and through, just made all of the sense in the world to say, okay, there's a lot of wealth here that we can mine. And we started as a homebrew. We weren't official when we started. We started as a homebrew. That will make it easier to figure this out as we move back into live entertainment. Because like we still didn't know, and there are still a ton of game mechanics in my current show that I hate. That I'm just, God, I wish I hadn't. There's always a ton of stuff that I'm like, God, I wish that I had said no to that, or that wasn't done. Or that was done poorly, but it was also a learning experience.
Oh, of course. I mean, it sounds like obviously D&D's logical choice, and the fact that you've tried it out in different genres also is really fun. What have you learned, especially with your background within theater, of producing this sort of theatrical show from fandoms like D&D versus like a generalistic theater audience? You know, have you learned any differences between the two?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. And it's a big part of where we're going, where the world from the entertainment spectrum, where it's going right now. So I was very fortunate. I was the producer of a play off Broadway called Puffs, which was a parody of the Harry Potter universe that ran in New York for about 2 years. It's a very successful play. It's one of the most licensed plays in the US. It does really well for itself. A very, very funny play. That's when I started learning about the power of actual fandoms and how they can, what their needs are for the types of live entertainment, but also how many young people and fandoms within sci-fi fantasy are entirely underserved in the live entertainment arena. What I have learned over the last 4 years is that theater is old. And it is an old art form, but like the theater that we are experiencing now in this country is not geared for young people at all. And the prices are high. Everything about it, there's a barrier to entry for young people to get in. And that was one of the challenges that we had with 20-Sided Tavern on the tour, was that, you know, we couldn't really get the critical mass in some key markets that we needed to, because the tickets were just too expensive. And I'm not necessarily like, there is, when you're doing theater shows, there's kind of a minimum that you have to hit to pay for all of the stuff to be able to put it up in that building. And what happens in a legacy industry like theater is that you're really not able to reverse engineer costs, because the costs are just the cost because of all of the things like that surround it, the rent on the theater, the union cost, the this cost, that's, you know, like all that go around to it. And they have built up over time. And so it's a really tough industry in that regard. Like what, you know, Broadway shows are crazy expensive now.
Right.
The ticket prices of Broadway shows. So what I found for the stuff that I'm going to start doing next is really understanding that the people who love the stuff that I do max out at about a $50 ticket. So I actually have to reverse engineer backwards and say, all right, we have to figure out how to produce quality at a price point that our audience can actually afford for a night out. And the problem that I had in New York with 20-Sided Tavern is that we needed $70 a ticket in order to make it profitable, and that just wasn't feasible. So what's happening in the live entertainment world is that experiential entertainment is the fastest growing sector in the entertainment world, bar none, right? It's people are going for experiences, they want more for their money, but they're not willing to pay a lot for it yet. So
Yeah.
so we have to meet the market where it is, which is fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. It's just I have to meet the market where it is. I have to be able to deliver quality in a way that isn't that I can do without having to go through the theater way. I tried doing it the theater way. The other thing too is like people don't go to like my audience doesn't go to theater.
I think you're kind of on the note, because I mean, especially myself, I've been to theater. I could count on one hand how many times I've gone to an actual like theatrical experience. But I think you've kind of hit the nail, is that I don't think it's been advertised to me in such a way where it's been enticing. Obviously, I mentioned before prior to our recording is that I knew about 20-Sided Tavern because that was actually promoted to me in a way and in a space that I was involved in, and where there is a lot of young players.
And you're in that space, but what I discovered is asking you go to a theater is the wrong invitation. You don't want to go to a theater. It's not a place where you go consume entertainment. If I had said to you, hey, come to a tavern, not the theater, not the, where were we? Where were we in LA? We were at the Montalban, the Ricardo Montalban, right? There's just too much negative connotation, too much in your head about, but if I was like, hey, do you want to come to this tent where there's a tavern and a D&D tavern that's happening and we're only in town for a few weeks, and your price point is $50 and you get a free drink when you walk in the door, and we're going to put on a D&D show for you that you've never seen before that's interactive, that might have been a better invitation.
Oh, 100%. And it's kind of why I've known about you guys for a while. And it's funny because it's more than just that, because it's more than just a live action performance. It actually involves audience participation to a point where they can even go on stage. We mentioned this prior to the call, but I've had friends and other people we've interviewed who've actually been on stage and participated in the physical events and sort of the challenges that are there.
We tried too hard. The big mistake that I made in this one was that I tried too hard to be a theater piece as opposed to what it actually wanted to be. Like I say this internally because we've done a lot of postmortem about why this thing didn't work the way they wanted to and how do we make it work for the next round, because everybody wants us to keep going. Like in the early days, we were constantly getting asked by people being like, hey, I want to propose to my boyfriend, girlfriend on stage at the 20-Sided Tavern. It's really important to me. And for whatever reason, we just had a rule against it. And I realized way too late in the game being like, that's ridiculous. We should have been like, cool, at this moment, this is what's going to happen. You're going to come on stage. This is how we're going to handle it. We're going to do the proposal and we're going to turn it into a whole thing. Adhere to a free D20. But going back to what I said, is like, from a conceptual standpoint, the show itself is fantastic, right? The actual show that we put together was absolutely fantastic. The invitation in the room, in terms of like asking people to come into the theater, that's where I went wrong. And again, it's like, I worked in theater for 25 years. I thought I knew what I was doing. I did not.
I mean, it's a whole new game. And funny enough, 20-Sided Tavern has been a host to some really serious and amazing and well-known role players. Anjali Bhumani, Erica Ishii, Abri Iyengar, only just scratched the surface.
Neil Newbon.
Yeah, Neil Newbon. Oh my God, all these amazing talent that are within the tabletop industry. You guys have been able to host them and be able to participate. If you had the ability right now to instantly book anyone within the industry to show up to a show, who would you pick?
No, I mean, like that, a impossible question for me to answer. The first celebrity that we asked to come play with us was Felicia Day. And
oh, wonderful.
She was fantastic and just a lovely, wonderful, wonderful human being. And at the end of her week, she was like, she came up to me, she's like, I have a note. I'm like, what? She goes, this show is way more physical than you told me it was going to be when you pitched it to me. And I was like, yep. I was like, sorry about that. She's like, it's a tough show. That's the thing that you got to figure out. She's like, I had the best time of my life. And then we had Abria, we had Abria and Erica in, and Abria and Erica are like, this is summer camp for us. This is the most fun. Like, we get out of our normal day-to-day lives and our routine and we come play here, and it's so joyful and wonderful. And we did a really good job of reinforcing that. Travis McElroy was in the show at one point.
Yes.
He was great. Obviously Neil was in the show. Neil was absolutely incredible. Anjali was amazing. Did a phenomenal job in it. Deborah was in the show, and we just kind of kept cycling. Oh, Damien Haas was out of this world. Damien Haas was so good. I remember seeing Damien Haas and going up to him after the show and being like, he was just like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm like, just do that again. That was incredible. One of the most fun ones that we had was Jack the Whipper. If you know Jack Lapisse, Jack the Whipper from TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's honestly, whenever you see him do a dance or sort of with a song, jiving with the actual like crowd and doing crowd work, he's really good at what he does.
Phenomenal actor. He's a phenomenal improver, and he was so much fun to play with. So like, I think part of it is that we were able to come from literally nowhere and integrate ourselves within the community and be a presence and be a thing in a way, that I think we're all really grateful. We were embraced by this entire community. Never really were able to get any traction on the Critical Role folks, but they're also like, they're too busy. Like they were very nice and very polite, but they're just like, there's no way we have time for this. And I'm like, I completely understand. So there was that. I mean, like I would love to be able to play with a Critical Role person, but like even more so, there are film and television celebrities who have some sort of theatrical or stage training who are big D&D fans that we would also love to play with one day.
That's very true. Obviously, my question was like, who would be, your
celebrity? Oh my God, like Stephen Colbert is free. I want him in now.
That's a good choice. That's a really good. He's got a history.
He would be amazing in the show.
Oh my God, that's a really good choice. And follow up to that itself, because I've mentioned before, but I've done some of my homework. I try to do as much as I can with each guest I talk to. Should I start calling you Carp? Last year,
is that what happened?
I found last year, so doing as much research as I can, I found last year that a Brian Guard legend called you Carp from the LACC from the Page stage panel. Were you? I was like, huh? Why did you call? Oh, right, his last name. That's just a little dig that I found. But you guys have been all over the place, for New York to California to Scotland. The crew of the 20-sided Tavern
Fringe Festival. Yep, we're a huge hit at Edinburgh Fringe Festival back in 22. That was a lot of fun. I never need to produce at the Edinburgh Fringe again for as long as I live.
It's off your bucket list.
Yep, it absolutely was a bucket list item, and we did it, and it was phenomenal. It helped us establish a serious amount of legitimacy that opened up the conversation for us to go to Hasbro and say, hey, can we talk about getting a license here? And Hasbro, obviously, we're all over the show without us knowing it. For legal reasons, but having produced one of the most successful parody plays in the country, and keeping J.K. Rowling off my back for years, I was like, I'm never like, I'm not in any trouble on this one.
That's that if you've already beat that dragon, I think you're fine.
I drove that dragon to a standstill. I would never say that I was victorious.
That's right. You know what? Great.
For me, that was a win.
To our own lawyers that are listening, stand still. We're going to choose that verbiage. But no, you've been all over sharing and bringing adventures to people who are coming. I'm not asking for a tier list, because I'm sure each venue provided such a wonderful experience. But do you have a favorite location that you've ever performed at?
We killed it in Boston. We killed it in Detroit. LA was good, not great. I mean, LA can be a tough time when it comes to theatrical entertainment.
You're clashing with other shows.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Chicago. God, I love Chicago. I can never really make this work in Chicago, and I really wanted to. That's still kind of sitting there, being like, I'm gonna keep trying to make something successful in Chicago one time. Killed it in Kansas City. We had a great time in Kansas City. That was really amazing. Those are some of the highlights. I mean, New York was a lot of fun. New York was tough. New York is tough. I don't particularly like producing in New York. I try to avoid it at all costs from now on. New York is just so expensive. So expensive. Such a hard market. But yeah,
sort of jumping back to sort of the experience that someone can have when joining and being an audience member at 20-sided Tavern. Was there ever a wild moment or unexpected sort of derailment from the actual crowd itself? Or has it ever been forced on your actors where they had to adapt on stage?
I can't even. I mean, it's every night, right? Like
it's every night. It's such a chaos game. It's such a chaos game.
There's no way to quantify the chaos that happened. There's just no way to do it. Everybody's got their favorite stories of what happened, and of course mine. I mean, the problem with me, since I've been with the project, I originated the project, been with it 4.5 years. Some of the early stuff before, when it was still homebrew, is some of the stuff that sticks the most with me, right? Nice. But you have but there are moments in the show because I'm a big believer in the authenticity of the entertainment, right? Everything we do in that show is true. We don't fake anything at all. Every vote is true. Every dice roll is true. We never know what's going to happen. And you really have these magical moments of where the characters were in the BBEG fight. They were near death, right? And they had one roll left to win. And someone rolls a 20 at a critical moment. And it's like the winning pass touchdown at a Super Bowl with seconds to go. That is the same energy that happened in the theater. I mean, that's
everything just erupts on fire. Everyone just gets the energy explodes.
Wild. It's wild what happened. And I've never seen anything like that in a theater space before, right? And so that was a big part of saying, well, I know this is working in this room. And so it was like, I know this thing is working because we're able to replicate the energy from a sports stadium within this enclosure. And that's just the setup of the show. That's the creative, that's Gamiotics, that's everything that we set up with the show, that we put everything every night on chance and we hope for the best. Yeah. And that's what for me, that was something that really was so palpable over the years, was that all that would happen a lot of times.
Yeah. You can't get away from it. It's just built in.
Why people love sports is because they just don't know what's going to happen. Being able to do that in live entertainment, right? With a D&D property, something that people care about, like for nerds like me, for sci-fi fantasy, that's what I'm after. It's like they don't get to have all the fun. We can have it over here. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure anyone who's listening to this has sort of heard all of the experiences they can have. And obviously people hearing that probably can't wait to book. But at the moment, you guys are currently on a production pause, which, coming from an overworked GM and CEO myself, sometimes you need these breaks. Believe me, I feel it all the time.
So what's next, right? So look, I faced a product market fit problem that you have in startups. I mean, my technology company is separate from my production company. Like, they're two different things, right? And the product market fit for the production company, as I described, it's like, God, this invitation to having people go to the theater that just did not work the way I wanted to. So I am trying to rethink this for London right now. I don't want to bring it back to New York. That's not going to happen. Trying to rethink this for London into more of a tavern concept to see if that's something that we can do. I don't have any approvals from Hasbro on any of this. So this is all just like talking right now.
We're in the planning stages. Yeah, we're right now jotting things down on a notebook. But
we have prepped the show for people to be able to license it and be able to do it themselves. And so that is something that we're in the midst of right now, trying to figure out with Hasbro our ability to do that. So there's a little bit of watch this space soon to see what is coming out next. Part of it also, having done this for 4.5 years, I'm not doing this anymore. I am done producing the show. I don't need to produce the show anymore. I did everything that I could with it. I mean, other people license it and do it for themselves, and that's great. I'm moving on. And of course, I'll always be part of the show. I mean, it's my show.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But I have other ambitions with Gamiotics of other IPs that I'm starting to work with now for new experiences. So I'm in a 18-month to 2-year developmental cycle right now to bring some new stuff out into the world over the next 2 years. So TSC will keep going in whatever form it's going to keep going on. But I'm putting a lot of my energies into the new stuff that I want to create with the lessons I learned from the last 4.5 years.
Incredible. No, absolutely. That's great that you're able to expand and sort of view other, other forms of entertainment. So thank you so much, David, for joining me today, and not only for sharing your adventures with us here, but also with everyone. I would say usually for actual plays on the internet, but more than that, for people at their own home. So thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you and keep up with your new work?
Find me on LinkedIn, David Carpenter. I'm easy to find, or just through the Gamiotics website. That's the easiest place. We're about to go through an overhaul. I'm in a big discussion right now about financing and everything, so I can kind of restart and move forward. So there's just a lot going on behind the scenes and have been for the last 6 months.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.